G1 stood in the ship's main kitchen, staring at 3 untouched meal trays. The food had gone cold hours ago. She picked up one tray and examined it carefully. The raw meat was perfectly fresh. The mineral supplements were measured exactly right. The temperature-controlled gel packs kept everything at the precise level that Relnik's biology required. Everything was perfect. Everything was wrong. They still haven't eaten? Captain Dong-Yun asked from the doorway. His face showed deep concern. Ji-won shook her head. 3 days now. Their guardian brought the trays back untouched again this morning. The captain walked closer and looked at the trays. Can they survive much longer without food? Relnik's cubs can go 5 days, maybe 6, Ji-won said quietly. But that's physically. Emotionally? I don't know what this is doing to them. She had been the nutritionist on the Harmony's Edge for 2 years. She knew how to feed 47 different species. She understood their dietary needs, their cultural preferences, their biological requirements. But she had never faced children who chose to starve themselves. The 3 Vrelnik's cubs had come aboard with their delegation 6 months ago. Back then, they had been active and curious. Their scales gleamed with health. They played rough games in the corridors and asked endless questions about the ship. Their parents, both decorated warriors, watched them with obvious pride. Then the border skirmish happened. A small conflict, the diplomats called it. A brief encounter with raiders. Nothing serious, except it killed the cubs' parents. The Vrelnik's honor code did not allow for public mourning. The cubs were expected to be strong. They were taken to their quarters and told to meditate on warrior virtues. Their guardian, Commander Threk, watched over them with stern kindness. He reminded them daily that they came from a line of great fighters. They must honor their parents by being brave. The cubs had nodded. They had been quiet. And then they had stopped eating. Medical can't help? The captain asked. Dr. Hyunwoo tried, Ji-won said. But Vrelnik's biology is complicated. Their digestive systems are connected to their emotional state. If they're too distressed, their bodies reject food. Forcing them would make them sick. Captain Dong-Hyun was silent for a long moment. You've worked with the Vrelnik's delegation more than anyone else on this ship. You know their dietary needs better than our medical staff. I know what they eat, Ji-won said. I don't know how to heal broken hearts. Maybe that's exactly what they need, the captain said. Not a doctor. Not a warrior. Just someone who sees them as children first. Ji-won felt a weight settle on her shoulders. Commander Threk might not appreciate interference. Commander Threk asked me to send you, the captain replied. He's desperate. His culture won't let him show it, but I can see it in his eyes. Those cubs are dying, Ji-won. Slowly but dying. Will you try? She looked at the cold food trays again. Somewhere on this ship, 3 children were hurting so badly they wanted to fade away. She thought of her own childhood, of the grandmother who had raised her. When her grandmother died, Ji-won had been 9 years old. She remembered not wanting to eat, not wanting to move, not wanting to exist in a world that felt so empty. I'll try, she said. An hour later, Ji-won stood outside the cubs' quarters with a fresh meal tray. She had prepared it herself, making sure every element was right. But she had also brought something else. A second tray with human food. Rice, vegetables, and grilled fish. Her own dinner. The door opened. Commander Threk stood there, 7 feet of scaled muscle and warrior discipline. His eyes were tired. Nutritionist Ji-won, he said formally, you honor us with your presence. I brought food, Ji-won said simply. He looked at the trays and something like pain crossed his face. They will not eat. I have tried commands. I have tried reasoning. I have tried leaving them alone. Nothing works. May I sit with them? Threk hesitated. Our customs require that cubs learn independence. Coddling makes them weak. Commander, Ji-won said gently. Right now they're not learning independence. They're learning that pain has no end. He studied her face for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. The cubs' quarters were larger than standard crew rooms. Vrelnik's needed space, but it felt empty now. 3 small figures sat in the corner, their scales dull, their bodies too thin. They didn't look up when Ji-won entered. She walked to the center of the room and sat down on the floor. Not close to the cubs. Not far away. Just within their line of sight. She placed both trays in front of her. For several minutes, no one moved. Ji-won opened her own tray and began to eat. She didn't look at the cubs directly. In Vrelnik's culture, direct eye contact could be a challenge. She kept her gaze on her food and ate slowly. When I was young, Ji-won said quietly. My grandmother raised me.
She taught me everything.
How to cook, how to read, how to be kind even when the world wasn't kind back. She was my whole world. She took another bite of rice. When I was 9, she got sick. It happened fast. One day she was teaching me to make dumplings. 3 weeks later she was gone. Ji-won felt the memories rise up, still sharp after all these years. I didn't want to eat after that. Food tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing. My aunt came to stay with me. She would cook my grandmother's recipes and try to make me eat. But I couldn't. It felt wrong to eat, to enjoy anything when my grandmother was gone. She paused, taking a sip of water. One day my aunt sat down and ate her own meal in front of me. She didn't tell me to eat. She didn't give me speeches about being strong. She just ate. And she talked. She told me stories about my grandmother when she was young. Funny stories. Stories about mistakes and adventures and the person my grandmother was before I knew her. Ji-won glanced toward the cubs. The smallest one, Crixus, had turned his head slightly. He was listening. My aunt said something I never forgot. She said that eating wasn't about forgetting the people we lost. It was about honoring them, because they wanted us to live. They wanted us to grow up and be strong and have our own adventures. Starving myself wouldn't bring my grandmother back. It would just waste the love she gave me. Ji-won picked up the Vrelnik's tray and set it closer to the cubs. Not right in front of them. Just closer. I don't know all of your customs, she said. I don't know the warrior codes or the proper ways to grieve. But I know that your parents loved you, and I know they would want you to eat. She went back to her own meal. The silence stretched out. Ji-won finished her rice and started on the vegetables. She was about to give up hope when she heard a small sound. Scraping. Claws on metal flooring. Crixus was moving. Slowly, carefully, the small cub crawled toward the tray. He didn't look at Ji-won. He reached out with one claw and pulled a piece of meat toward himself. He sniffed it. Then, with movements that looked almost painful, he took a bite. The other 2 cubs watched. One of them, slightly larger, made a soft chirping sound. It was a question in Vrelnik's language. Crixus chirped back. An answer. The larger cub moved forward. Then the 3rd one followed. They ate slowly. Small bites. They only finished a fraction of the meal. But they ate. Crixus looked up at Ji-won. His eyes were large and dark and full of pain that no child should carry. He reached out with one small claw and placed it on her hand. The touch was light, almost weightless. Ji-won felt tears prick her eyes but held them back. She turned her hand slowly and gently curled her fingers around the claw. It's okay, she whispered. You're going to be okay. From the doorway, Commander Threk watched. His face showed nothing, but his hands held behind his back were trembling. For the first time in 3 days, the cubs had eaten. It wasn't much. It wasn't enough. But it was a beginning. Ji-won stayed with them until they fell asleep, huddled together in their corner. When she finally left, Threk followed her into the corridor. He said nothing for a long moment. Thank you, he finally said. The words sounded strange in his mouth, as if gratitude was a foreign language. I'll come back tomorrow, Ji-won replied. They will expect you, Threk said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ji-won agreed. They will. She didn't know it then, but that expectation would change everything. For the cubs. For the ship. For the fragile peace between species, who were still learning to understand each other, all because one human woman sat on the floor and shared her own grief with 3 hurting children. Sometimes the smallest. Gestures create the biggest changes. Sometimes sitting beside someone is enough. The next morning, Ji-won arrived at the cubs' quarters with breakfast. She had woken early to prepare their food exactly right. Fresh meat, proper supplements, everything according to Vrelnik's dietary needs. Commander Threk met her at the door. He looked like he hadn't slept. They asked for you, he said. Before dawn, they woke and asked where you were. I'm here now, Ji-won said. When she entered, the 3 cubs sat exactly where they had been yesterday, waiting. Crixus made a small chirping sound when he saw her, not quite happy, not quite sad. Just acknowledgement. Ji-won sat down in the same spot as before. She opened the tray and set it between them. For a moment, no one moved. Then Crixus crawled forward and began to eat. The others followed. They ate more than yesterday. Not much more, but enough to notice. Tell us another story, Crixus said softly. His voice was rough from disuse, so Ji-won told them about her first day on a spaceship. How scared she had been. How everything felt too big and strange. How she had gotten lost trying to find the kitchen and ended up in the engine room instead. The cubs listened, and one of them made a sound that might have been a laugh. She stayed until they finished eating. When she stood to leave, all 3 cubs made distressed sounds. "I have to work," G1 explained. "But I'll come back for lunch. Promise?" The largest cub asked. His name was Vec. "I promise," G1 said. She kept that promise. And the next day she kept it again. By the end of the week, a pattern had formed. The cubs would not eat unless G1 was there. They refused breakfast until she arrived. They would wait for lunch no matter how hungry they were. Dinner was the same. Dr. Hyun Woo, the ship's medical officer, stopped G1 in the corridor one morning. "What you're doing with those cubs is remarkable," he said. "Their vital signs are improving. They're gaining weight. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." "I'm just sitting with them," G1 said. "You're doing more than that," Hyun Woo replied. "You're giving them a reason to live." But not everyone was happy about the situation. Soo Jin, one of the engineers, found Ji-won rushing to the cubs' quarters during her lunch break. "You're going to see them again?" Soo Jin asked with a smile. "That's 3 times today." "They won't eat without me," Ji-won said. "So you've become their mother now?" Ji-won stopped walking. "No, not their mother. Their parents are gone. I could never replace that." Soo Jin's smile faded. "I'm sorry. That was thoughtless. I just meant that you care for them like family. Maybe that's what they need right now," Ji-won said quietly. As the days passed, the cubs started following Ji-won around the ship. At first, Commander Threk objected. Cubs should remain in their quarters for proper meditation and study. But the cubs would become distressed when Ji-won left. They would stop eating again. Finally, Threk allowed them to shadow Ji-won during her daily duties. It was strange at first. Ji-won would work in the kitchen, measuring nutrients and calculating dietary needs for dozens of species, while 3 small Vrelnik's cubs sat nearby and watched. She would visit the storage bays to check food supplies, and they would follow in a line behind her. The crew found it amusing, then touching. Then normal Ji-won taught them about nutrition. She showed them how different species needed different foods. The cubs were fascinated. They asked endless questions. Why did the Talvox eat only plants? Why did humans need so much water? Why did the Morphean people eat things that smelled so terrible? In return, the cubs taught Ji-won things. They showed her how to count in their language. They sang warrior songs that their parents had taught them. Crixus would sit beside her and draw pictures on a digital pad, showing her the symbols of his family line. The cubs began to heal. Slowly, painfully, but they healed. But trouble was coming. 2 weeks after the cubs started eating again, Gormath arrived at Ji-won's workspace. He was the senior Vrelnik's diplomat on the ship. Large, scarred, and severe. "We must speak," he said. Ji-won set down her work. "Of course. You have done a kind thing," Gormath began. "The cubs eat now, they live. For this I thank you." "But," Ji-won prompted. "But you are making them soft," Gormath said. "They follow you like infants. They depend on you for everything. This is not the Vrelnik's way." "They're children who lost their parents," Ji-won said carefully. "They need time. They need strength," Gormath countered. "Every day they spend with you, they become more human and less Vrelniks. They forget the warrior traditions. They forget honor. This cannot continue. What are you suggesting?" "You will stop attending them at meals," Gormath said. "It was not a request. Commander Threk will resume full custody. The cubs will learn independence as our culture demands." Ji-won felt her heart sink. "They're not ready for that." "They will never be ready if you continue to coddle them," Gormath said. "I am grateful for what you have done. But it ends now." After he left, Ji-won sat in her workspace for a long time. She knew that Gormath had a point. The cubs were becoming very attached to her. Maybe too attached. But she also knew that cutting them off suddenly would devastate them. That evening, she talked to Captain Dong-hyun about it. "Gormath has threatened to end the diplomatic mission," the captain said heavily. "The Vrelnik's government has concerns. They believe we are interfering with their cultural practices." "I'm not trying to make them human," Ji-won said. "I'm trying to keep them alive." "I know," Dong-hyun said. "But we have to be careful. This mission is important for relations between our species. If we push too hard, we lose everything." Ji-won went to the cubs' quarters that night. Commander Threk stood outside, his face troubled. "You have heard," he said. Yes. I do not know what to do, Threk admitted. By Vrelnik's law, I should agree with Gormath. Cubs must learn to be warriors. They must stand alone. But these cubs have suffered too much. If you leave them now, they will break. Is there any Vrelnik's custom that would allow this? Jiwan asked. Any tradition where someone outside the family cares for cubs? Threk was quiet for a long moment. There is an old practice, very old. From the war times, when many cubs were orphaned, we called it shield parent. A warrior who was not family would protect and guide cubs until they were strong enough to stand alone. Could that apply here? It has not been used in generations, Threk said. And it was always another Vrelnik's. Never an outsider. Never another species, but it exists? Yes, Threk said slowly. It exists. Then let me try, Jiwan said. Let me become their shield parent if that's what it takes. Threk looked at her with something like respect. You would do this? Knowing it will be difficult? Knowing that many of my people will oppose it? I would do this, Jiwan said. Because those 3 children in there deserve to grow up. And if I can help with that, then I will. The next day, Commander Threk made a formal request to Captain Dong Hyun. He asked that Jiwan be recognized as shield parent to the 3 cubs, following ancient Vrelnik's tradition. The request went through the proper channels. It was translated, debated, discussed. Gormath was furious. This is mockery, he declared at a diplomatic meeting. Shield parent is a sacred role. It cannot be given to a human. The tradition does not specify species, Threk argued. It specifies qualities. Courage, dedication, understanding. Jiwan has shown all of these. She knows nothing of our ways, Gormath shot back. Then test her, Captain Donghyun suggested. If you doubt her knowledge, test her. Let her prove she understands Vrelnik's culture. Gormath's eyes narrowed. Very well, a test. 3 parts. Knowledge of our customs, wisdom in our philosophy, and understanding of our hearts. If she fails any part, the cubs come with me to a proper Vrelnik's training colony. Jiwan stood before the assembled diplomats. I accept. You have 3 days to prepare, Gormath said. Then we will see if a human can truly understand what it means to be Vrelnik's. After the meeting, Jiwan felt panic rising. 3 days. How could she learn an entire culture in 3 days? Commander Threk found her in the corridor. I will help you, he said quietly. And I believe the cubs will too. They know more than you think. That night, Jiwan sat with the cubs for dinner. They ate happily, their scales brighter than they had been in weeks. They didn't know yet what was at stake, but Jiwan knew. In 3 days, she would either prove herself worthy of being their shield parent, or she would lose them forever. She looked at Crixus, at Vec, at little Sierra, who had finally started talking again. She thought about the journey they had all been on together, the grief they had shared, the slow, painful healing. She could not fail them, she would not fail them. Tomorrow, Jiwan said, I need you to teach me everything you know about being Vrelnik's. Can you do that? Crixus tilted his head. Why? Because I want to understand you better, Jiwan said. I want to learn about where you come from, about what your parents taught you. Will you help me? All 3 cubs chirped agreement. They had no idea they were helping her fight for the right to stay in their lives. Sometimes the people we're trying to save end up saving us instead. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Commander Threk became Jiwan's teacher. In the early morning hours before the cubs woke, he taught her Vrelnik's history. The Great Wars, the formation of clans, the codes of honor that governed every aspect of their society. Strength is not just physical, Threk explained. A true warrior knows when to fight and when to protect. The greatest dishonor is not defeat. It is abandoning those under your care. Jiwan wrote everything down. She studied late into the night, reading texts that Threk provided. Ancient Vrelnik's wisdom, stories of legendary warriors, the complex rules about family bonds and duty. During the day, the cubs taught her without knowing they were teaching her. They showed her their games. They sang the songs their parents had sung. They explained why certain gestures meant respect while others meant challenge. Crixus was the most patient teacher. He would demonstrate the proper way to bow to an elder. He would correct Jiwan's pronunciation when she tried to speak their language. He seemed to sense that something important was happening, even if he didn't understand what. Tai Min, the ship's security officer, helped Jiwan with physical training. Gormath's test would include demonstrating understanding of Vrelnik's combat philosophy. You don't need to win a fight, Tai Min said as they practiced in the gym. You need to show you understand what fighting means to them. What does it mean? Ji-won asked, breathing hard. Honor, Taemin said. Every movement has purpose. Every action has consequence. Fighting isn't about anger. It's about discipline. Dr. Yoon-ji, the science officer, helped Ji-won understand Vrelnik's child development. She explained how their minds worked, how trauma affected them differently than human children, how their emotional bonds formed. They're more resilient than humans in some ways, Yoon-ji said, but more vulnerable in others. Once they bond with someone, breaking that bond can cause permanent psychological damage. Then I can't fail, Ji-won said simply. The day of the test arrived. The ship's gymnasium had been converted into a formal Vrelnik's meeting space. The entire delegation was present. Captain Dong-hyun and his senior staff stood to one side. The Cubs sat with Commander Threk, confused about why everyone had gathered. Gormath stood in the center, impressive and intimidating. Nutritionist Ji-won, he said formally, you seek to become shield parent to 3 cubs of the Vrelnik's people. This is a sacred responsibility. To earn this honor, you must prove 3 things: knowledge of our ways, wisdom in our philosophy, and understanding of our hearts. Do you accept this challenge? Ji-won stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I accept. Then we begin with knowledge, Gormath said. Tell me the 3 primary virtues of a Vrelnik's warrior. Ji-won had memorized this. Courage in battle, loyalty to clan, strength in adversity. What is the proper response when an elder challenges your honor? Stand firm if you are right. Bow if you are wrong. But never look away. Gormath asked question after question. Dates of famous battles, names of legendary warriors, customs for births, deaths, coming-of-age ceremonies. Ji-won answered them all. Some answers came easily. Others she had to think about. But she answered them. Finally, Gormath nodded. Your knowledge is acceptable. Now we test wisdom. He presented a scenario. A cub's parent dies in battle. The clan says the cub must be sent away for warrior training immediately. The cub is grieving and not ready. What do you do? This was the heart of everything. Ji-won took a breath. I honor the clan's wisdom, she said, but I ask for time. A warrior who has not processed grief cannot focus on training. A cub who is broken inside cannot build strength outside. I would ask for a waiting period. Time for the cub to grieve properly. Then when the cub is ready, training can begin. A delayed warrior is better than a destroyed child. Murmurs ran through the Vrelnik's delegates. Some seemed approving. Others frowned. Gormath presented more scenarios. Each one tested Ji-won's understanding of balancing Vrelnik's traditions with the reality of trauma and need. She answered carefully, always trying to honor their culture while advocating for the cub's well-being. Your wisdom is adequate, Gormath finally said. The word was grudging. Now we test your heart. This is the most important test. He gestured to a viewing screen. Watch. The screen showed recordings from the past 3 weeks. Ji-won saw herself sitting with the cubs at meals, teaching them about nutrition, laughing as they tried to teach her their counting games. The footage showed quiet moments. Crixus falling asleep against her shoulder, Sierra showing her a drawing of her family, Vec asking if his parents would be proud of him. Ji-won felt tears threaten but held them back. Tell me, Gormath said. What do you see? I see 3 children healing, Ji-won said. You see 3 cubs becoming soft, Gormath countered. Dependent, weak. No, Ji-won said firmly. That's not what I see at all. She stood straighter. I see 3 cubs who suffered a terrible loss, who did what any child would do when faced with unbearable pain. They shut down. They wanted to die rather than face a world without their parents. The room was silent. But they didn't die. Ji-won continued. They found the strength to eat, to move, to learn. They asked questions about their culture. They practice warrior songs. Vec asked me yesterday if his father would be proud of how much he's learned. Does that sound like a cub who has forgotten his heritage? They cling to you, Gormath said. They cannot function without you. They're children, Ji-won said. All children need someone to depend on while they learn to be independent. Would you send a cub into warrior training the day after they're born? No. You wait until they're ready. These cubs are learning to be ready. She looked at Gormath directly. You think I'm making them weak? I think I'm giving them a foundation to build strength on. A building with no foundation will collapse. A warrior with no heart will break. Vrelniks do not speak of hearts, Gormath said coldly. We speak of honor. Then let me speak of honor, G1 said. She thought of all the studying she had done, all the texts Threk had shown her. Your own ancient writings say that the strongest warrior is the one who protects the clan. That includes the young. That includes the vulnerable. What honor is there in letting cubs die of grief? She took a step forward. The shield parent tradition exists because your people understood something important. Sometimes the best thing for cubs isn't the hardest path. Sometimes it's the gentlest one. The path that lets them heal before they learn to fight. Gormath's expression was unreadable. You speak of our traditions. But you are not Vrelniks. How can you possibly understand what these cubs need? You're right, G1 said. I'm not Vrelniks. I can't teach them how to fight like you can. I can't show them warrior techniques or train them in combat. That's not my role. She glanced at the cubs. Crixus was watching her intently. My role is to be the safe place, G1 said. The person they can come to when everything feels too hard. The one who sits beside them when they're scared. Commander Threk can teach them to be warriors. But they need someone to teach them it's okay to hurt sometimes. That healing isn't weakness. That asking for help is actually a kind of strength. Pretty words, Gormath said. But words mean nothing without understanding. Then let me show you understanding, G1 said. She turned to face the entire assembly. In Vrelnik's culture, the bond between parent and child is sacred. When a parent dies, the cub carries their memory forward. Every victory the cub achieves honors the parent. Every strength the cub develops reflects the parent's teachings. She looked back at Gormath. These cubs will grow up. They will become warriors if that's the path they choose. And when they do, people will ask who taught them, who guided them. And the answer will be their parents. Always their parents. Because everything good in them came from that foundation. G1's voice grew softer. I'm not trying to replace their parents. I couldn't even if I wanted to. I'm just trying to keep them alive long enough to honor their parents' memory. To become the warriors their parents hoped they would be. The room was completely silent. Then Crixus stood up. The small cub walked to the center of the room. He stood before the assembled adults, his scales gleaming with nervous energy. When he spoke, it was in formal Vrelniks, the language used for official occasions. My father taught me that a warrior's greatest strength is knowing when to trust, Crixus said. His voice was small but clear. He said that blindness is choosing to ignore the truth. Wisdom is seeing what is real and acting on it. He looked at Gormath. G1 did not make us weak. She made us want to live again. Is that not strength? She taught us about our own culture. She asks us every day what our parents would want us to know. Is that not honoring their memory? Vec and Sira stood up and joined their brother. Our father said that family is not just blood, Vec added. It is who stands beside you when the world is dark. Our mother said that love is not weakness, Sira said quietly. It is the reason we fight at all. The three cubs looked up at G1. She sat beside us when we wanted to die, Crixus said. She did not command us. She did not shame us. She just sat, and that made us want to try again. Gormath stared at the cubs. His expression was complex, emotions warring across his face. Commander Threk stood. I vote that G1 be recognized as shield parent. She has proven knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The months that followed brought changes to everyone aboard the Harmony's Edge. The cubs thrived under their new arrangement. Every morning they trained with Commander Threk. He taught them combat forms, meditation techniques, and the warrior codes. The cubs practiced diligently. They were still young, still small, but they grew stronger every day. In the afternoons, they spent time with G1. She taught them about different cultures, about the hundreds of species that existed across the galaxy, about nutrition and science and the things that made life possible on a spaceship. They asked endless questions, and she answered every one. The cubs still ate their meals with G1, always. They would wait in the mess hall until she arrived, no matter how busy she was. It became a ship-wide understanding. When meal times approached, someone would find G1 and remind her. The cubs were waiting. The mess hall itself changed because of this routine. Before the cubs arrived, different species ate in separate areas, not because of rules, but because of comfort. Vrelniks ate in one corner, their food requiring specific temperatures. Humans clustered near the viewing windows. The Talvoks, with their plant-based diets, sat near the gardens. Everyone stayed with their own kind. But the cubs didn't understand these invisible boundaries. They sat with Jiwon, and Jiwon sat wherever there was space. Soon, other crew members started joining them, curious about the cubs, wanting to hear their stories. Tae-min, the security officer, would sit and trade combat stories with Commander Threk. Dr. Hyunwoo would check on the cubs' health while eating his own lunch. Engineer Soo-jin brought her team to eat near them, joking that the cubs were better behaved than her staff. The mess hall officer, a human named Jae-sung, watched this with interest. He managed the food service, making sure everyone got fed properly. He had worked in mess halls on 5 different ships, and he had never seen anything like this. One day, he approached Jiwon during lunch. "I've noticed something," Jae-sung said. "You always stand during meals." Jiwon looked confused. "Do I?" "When Commander Threk is present, you stand," Jae-sung said. "It's subtle. You hold your tray and eat standing up. Why?" Jiwon glanced at where Threk sat with the cubs. "It's a Vrelnik's custom. When a superior officer is present, lower-ranked individuals stand as a sign of respect. Since Threk is the cubs' primary guardian and I'm just their shield parent, I stand." "That seems uncomfortable," Jae-sung observed. "It's fine," Jiwon said. "I don't mind," but Jae-sung did mind. He noticed over the next few days how Jiwon would shift her weight from foot to foot during long meals, how she would stretch her back when she thought no one was looking. She worked long hours, and standing through every meal was taking a toll. One evening, Jae-sung mentioned it to Soo-jin. "She stands for an hour at every meal," he said, 3 times a day. "That's 3 hours of standing she doesn't need to do." "It's cultural respect," Soo-jin said. "We can't interfere with that, can't we?" Jae-sung asked. "We've been adapting everything else. The cubs eat human food sometimes. They train with Vrelnik's methods but learn human science. Why can't we adapt this?" He brought the question to Commander Threk the next day. Threk was watching the cubs practice their meditation forms in the gym. "Commander," Jae-sung said carefully, "I have a question about Vrelnik's customs." "Speak," Threk said. "Jiwon stands during all meals out of respect for you. Is this required?" Threk was silent for a moment. "It is traditional. When I am present, she shows proper deference. But what if she had a chair?" Jae-sung asked. "Would that be disrespectful?" "A chair would be unusual," Threk said slowly. "But Jiwon is shield parent. That is also unusual. Perhaps unusual situations require unusual solutions." It wasn't quite approval, but it wasn't refusal either. Jae-sung took the question to Captain Dong-hyun. "You want to give her a chair?" the captain asked. "I want to give her a place," Jae-sung said. "She's become a part of something important on this ship. She's helped integrate the Vrelnik's delegation. She's brought different species together in the mess hall, and she's healing 3 traumatized cubs. The least we can do is give her a comfortable place to sit." Captain Dong-hyun smiled. "Make it happen." Soo-jin and her engineering team took on the project with enthusiasm. They studied both human and Vrelnik's design aesthetics. The chair needed to be comfortable for Jiwon's human body, but respectful of Vrelnik's culture. It needed to look like it belonged. They worked on it for a week, keeping it secret. The chair they created was beautiful, made from composite materials that were both strong and light. The back was carved with symbols from both cultures. Human characters meaning compassion intertwined with Vrelnik symbols meaning strength. The seat was cushioned but firm, sized perfectly for Jiwon. But the most important part was the engraving on the back. In both languages it read, "For the one who feeds the heart." On the day they planned to unveil it, Jae-sung arranged for all the cubs' friends to be in the mess hall at dinner time. Word had spread quietly through the ship. Something special was happening. Jiwon arrived with the cubs as usual. She didn't notice anything different at first. The cubs led her to their usual spot, chattering about their training session that day. Then she saw it, a chair. Her chair, placed right beside where the cubs always sat. Jiwon stopped walking. "What is this?" Jae-sung stepped forward. "This is for you. From all of us." The cubs chirped in excitement. "A chair. You have a chair now." "I can't accept this," Jiwon said, her voice shaking. "It's too much." Commander Threk approached. "It is appropriate," he said formally. "Shield parent is an honored position. This chair recognizes that honor." "But the customs," Jiwon started to say. "Customs can evolve," Threk said. "You taught me that." "The cubs taught me that. You have earned a place at this table, shield parent Jiwon. Sit." Jiwon looked around the mess hall, Crew members from a dozen different species were watching. Many were smiling. Some were recording the moment. Slowly, Ji-won sat down in the chair. It fit perfectly. The height was right. The back support was exactly where she needed it. For the first time in months, she ate a meal while sitting comfortably. The cubs clustered around her, thrilled. They touched the engravings on the chair, tracing the symbols with their claws. "What does this one mean?" Crixus asked, pointing to a human character. "It means compassion," Ji-won said, her voice thick with emotion. "Caring for others. And this one?" Fek asked, pointing to a Vrelnik symbol. "Strength," Commander Threk answered. "The strength to do what is right." "Just like Ji-won," Sira said happily. Around them, the mess hall had fallen quiet. Then someone started tapping their tray against the table. A human custom applause. Others joined in. Soon the whole mess hall was filled with the sound of different species showing approval in their own ways. Tapping, clicking, humming, chirping. Ji-won wiped her eyes quickly. "Thank you," she said. "All of you. Thank you." That night, as she was leaving the mess hall, Captain Dong-hyun stopped her. "That chair is permanent," he said. "It stays there with your name on it for as long as you're on this ship." "What if I'm not there at mealtimes?" Ji-won asked. "Then it waits for you," Dong-hyun said. "Just like the cubs do." Word of the chair spread beyond the Harmony's edge. When the ship docked at stations for supplies, crew members would tell the story. About the human nutritionist and the Vrelnik's cubs. About how a simple act of sitting together had changed the dynamics of an entire ship. Other vessels started hearing about it. Some thought it was silly. Others thought it was touching. But everyone agreed it was something new. Something that showed how different species could adapt and create new traditions together. One evening, Dr. Hyunwoo sat with Ji-won during dinner. "I've been tracking shipwide health metrics," he said. "Something interesting is happening." "What?" Ji-won asked. "Depression rates are down by 40%, Hyunwoo said. Anxiety incidents have decreased. Crew members are reporting better sleep, better morale, better relationships with colleagues from other species." "That's wonderful," Ji-won said. "But why are you telling me?" "Because it started when you began eating with the cubs," Hyunwoo said. "You showed everyone that it was okay to sit together, to mix species, to break down barriers. The cubs were the catalyst, but you were the example." Ji-won looked around the mess hall. He was right. Species that never used to interact were sharing tables. Conversations flowed across cultural boundaries. The Talvoks were teaching humans about plant cultivation. The Vrelniks were sharing combat philosophies with the Morphians. All because 3 traumatized cubs had needed someone to sit beside them. "It's not just about food," Sujin said, joining their conversation. "It's about presence. You showed up. Every day, no matter how busy you were, you showed up for those cubs. And everyone else saw that. They started showing up for each other." Taemin added, "The security incidents are down too. When people feel connected, they're less likely to fight." Ji-won felt overwhelmed. "I just wanted to help 3 children." "And you did," Captain Dong-hyun said, appearing beside their table. "But you also helped all of us. You reminded us why we're on this mission, not just to maintain diplomatic relations, but to learn that despite our differences, we're all fundamentally the same. We all need connection. We all need someone to sit beside us sometimes." 2 weeks later, the announcement came. "All hands, this is Captain Dong-hyun. We will reach our destination in 4 days. Prepare for final diplomatic protocols." Ji-won heard the announcement while working in the storage bay. Her hands stopped moving. 4 days. That was all the time she had left with the cubs. She hadn't told them yet. Every time she tried, the words died in her throat. How do you tell children who have already lost so much that they're about to lose someone else? That evening at dinner, the cubs sensed something was wrong. "You're quiet," Crixus observed. He had become good at reading her moods. "Just thinking," Ji-won said, trying to smile. "About what?" Sira asked. Before Ji-won could answer, Commander Threk arrived. He wasn't alone. 3 other Vrelnik's delegates were with him, including Gormath. The cubs stood immediately, showing respect to the elders. "Please sit," Gormath said. His tone was gentler than it used to be. "We must speak with you, all of you." The mess hall grew quiet. Other crew members sensed something important was happening. Gormath looked at the cubs. "You have done well in your training. Commander Threk reports that you have learned your forms properly. You understand warrior codes. You honor your parents' memory with your actions." The cubs chirped with pride. "Therefore," Gormath continued, It is time for you to return to our homeworld, to begin formal training at the academy. This is the way of our people. The cubs' chirping stopped. Crixus looked at Jiwan with wide eyes. When? He asked softly. When the ship docks, Gormath said. In 4 days, Vec made a distressed sound. But what about Jiwan? Jiwan will remain on the ship, Threk said carefully. She has duties here, and you have duties on the homeworld. No, Sira said. Her voice was small but firm. We can't leave her. You must, Gormath said. Not unkindly, but with certainty. This is not negotiable. The cubs looked at Jiwan. She saw the panic in their eyes, the same look they had worn when they first stopped eating. It's okay, Jiwan said, though her own heart was breaking. This is what's supposed to happen. You're strong enough now. You're ready. We're not, Crixus said. We need you. You don't, Jiwan said gently. Not anymore. You've grown so much. You're brave and smart and you honor your parents every day. You can do this. Can't you come with us? Vec asked. Jiwan opened her mouth to explain why that was impossible. But Captain Dong Hyun spoke first. Actually, the captain said, stepping forward, there may be a way. Everyone turned to look at him. We received a transmission from the Vrelnik's Council this morning, Dong Hyun said. They have been monitoring this mission closely. They have seen the reports about the Cubs' recovery, about the integration between species on this ship, about the role Jiwan has played. He looked at Jiwan. They are offering you a position. Cultural exchange ambassador between humans and Vrelniks. Jiwan stared at him. What? You would spend 6 months on the Vrelnik's homeworld, Dong Hyun explained. Working with families who are integrating different species, helping Vrelniks understand human perspectives, then 6 months on diplomatic vessels like this one, continuing the work you've been doing. I don't understand, Jiwan said. Gormath spoke up. What happened here was unprecedented. A human successfully serving as shield parent to Vrelnik's cubs. At first I opposed it. I believed it would weaken them. I was wrong. He looked at the cubs with something that might have been fondness. The Vrelnik's Council recognizes that our people are changing, Gormath said. We interact with more species than ever before. We need to learn how to maintain our culture, while also adapting. You have shown us how to do that. The Council wants you to teach others. But I'm not a teacher, Jiwan protested. I'm a nutritionist. You fed more than bodies, Commander Threk said. You fed spirits. That is what we need. Jiwan looked at the cubs. They were watching her with desperate hope. What about them? She asked. If I accept, what happens to them? They would train at the academy, Threk said. But you would be on the homeworld. You could visit them regularly. Guide them. Continue to be their shield parent. It wouldn't be the same, Jiwan said. We wouldn't be together every day. No, Threk agreed. But neither would you be completely separated. The cubs need their culture, but they also need you. This way they can have both. Crixus stood up. Will you do it? Will you come to our world? Jiwan looked around the mess hall, at her chair with its engraving, at the crew members who had become her friends, at the life she had built here. Then she looked at 3 small faces filled with hope. I need time to think, she said. That night, Jiwan couldn't sleep. She walked through the ship thinking about everything that had happened, how she had come aboard as a simple nutritionist and somehow become a bridge between species. She found herself in the mess hall again. Her chair sat empty, waiting. Sujin found her there. Having second thoughts? The engineer asked. I don't know what to do, Jiwan admitted. If I go to the Vrelnik's homeworld, I leave everything I know. My job, my friends, my life. But if you stay, you lose the cubs, Sujin said, and that might hurt more. I'm scared, Jiwan said. What if I fail? What if I can't help other families the way I help these cubs? What if I'm only good at this because of these specific children? Or, Sujin said, what if you're good at this because you have a gift? A gift for seeing what people need and providing it. The cubs aren't special because they're Vrelniks. They're special because they're children who needed help. There are more children like that. More families who need someone to show them how to bridge gaps. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. My grandmother used to say something, she finally said. She said that the best life is the one where you give what you have to those who need it most. Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. Sounds like a wise woman, Sujin said. She was, Jiwan agreed. I just wish she were here to tell me what to do. I think you already know what to do, Sujin said gently. You're just afraid to admit it. The next morning, Ji-won requested a meeting with Captain Dong-hyun and the Vrelnik's delegation. I have conditions, she said when they were assembled. Speak, Gormith said. First, the Cubs must be allowed to contact me whenever they need to, not just scheduled calls. Whenever. Agreed, Threk said immediately. Second, if they're struggling, if the training is too much, I need to be able to advocate for them, to speak up if something isn't working. Gormath hesitated, then nodded. You are shield parent. That is your right. Third, Ji-won said, I want to keep my chair. Everyone looked confused. The chair in the mess hall, Ji-won explained. I want it to stay here on this ship, so that when I come back for my 6 months on diplomatic vessels, it's waiting for me. And when I'm gone, I want it to remind everyone of what we built here. That different species can sit together, can eat together, can be family together. Captain Dong-hyun smiled. Your chair will be here always. Then I accept, Ji-won said. I'll go to the Vrelnik's homeworld. I'll try to help other families. And I'll keep being shield parent to 3 Cubs who taught me what it means to show up for someone. The Cubs, who had been waiting outside, burst into the room. They had been listening. You're coming, Crixus cried. They crashed into Ji-won, all 3 at once. She held them close, feeling relief and terror and hope all mixed together. I'm coming, she confirmed. I'm not leaving you. The next 4 days passed in a blur of preparation. Ji-won packed her belongings. She said goodbye to crew members who had become friends. She transferred her nutritionist duties to Dr. Hyunwoo, who promised to maintain her standards. On the last night before docking, there was a farewell party in the mess hall. Every species on the ship attended. They brought food from their cultures, shared stories, and celebrated the bonds that had formed. Taimin gave a speech about how the ship was safer because people cared about each other now. Dr. Yoonji talked about how cultural exchange made everyone smarter. Jae-sung presented Ji-won with a small replica of her chair to take with her. So you'll never forget where you belong, he said. Commander Threk spoke last. Among my people we have a saying. The strongest tree is not the one that stands alone. It is the one whose roots touch other roots underground, connected, supporting each other. Ji-won helped us remember that we are stronger together than apart. For that she has earned a place in Vrelnik's history. The party continued late into the night, but eventually people drifted away, until it was just Ji-won and the Cubs sitting in their usual spot. Are you scared? Vec asked. Yes, Ji-won admitted. Very scared. Us too, Sierra said. But we'll be scared together, Crixus said. That makes it better. Ji-won smiled. Yes, it does. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ji-won stood. Come on, she said. Let's go see the homeworld. The next morning the ship docked at the Vrelnik's homeworld. It was a beautiful planet, all red stones and purple skies. As they prepared to disembark, Ji-won took one last look at the mess hall. Her chair sat in its usual spot. Empty now, but waiting. Captain Dong-hyun stood beside her. Thank you, she said. For everything. Thank you, he replied. For showing us what humanity does best. What's that? You build bridges, Dong-hyun said. In the middle of darkness, you find ways to connect, to care, to sit beside someone who's hurting and